You're listening to Distraction Therapy. Conversations and sound walks at a time of change. With me, Rob Watson. Hello, Rob Watson here, and this is Distraction Therapy, and today I'm in Leicester City Centre for a sound walk and to ponder some observations about what it means to build back better and the kind of systemic change that is now being discussed as we manage and tackle climate change. So I'm going to have a mooch around the city centre and observe and watch out for traffic and to try and speed in traffic and to try and just kind of go through some ideas and observations and prompt some discussion. And I'm just at the Leicester Cathedral, where there's actually some building work going on, and they're refurbishing part of it, and I'll just kind of have a chat. It's a very miserable grey day for August. It's August the 16th, Monday, August the 16th, and honestly, I've never seen an August day like this. It's like going back to March. I wish I'd come out with a couple of additional layers to wear, because it's not very summery. It's kind of damp in the air, but the clouds are just like battleship grey. There's hardly any daylight peeking through. One of the things I've been watching recently, I've been walking tour videos, and it's, a really quick way to depress yourself is to watch a video on YouTube where somebody's walking around a town or a village in France, and it's sunny and it's warm, and people look relaxed and are able to sit outside cafes and bars and restaurants and kind of have a summer, whereas good old British weather is often changeable in the same day, and you can come out in the sunshine in the morning, and then literally by lunchtime you need a coat and a jumper and an umbrella, but that's probably what makes us the kind of interesting breed that we are, really. Okay, so let's I'm just stood now at the King Richard's Visitors Centre, and I'm going to head into the Clock Tower area through Silver Street and just capture some sounds as I walk along.
Nie, są 3-drzwiowe albo 5-drzwiowe. Nie, to dobrze.
Accidents that happen, follow the dot. Coincidence makes sense only with you. You don't have to speak. I feel emotional landscapes. They pass on me. The riddle gets solved, and you push me up to this state of emergency. How beautiful to be state of emergency is where I want to be. You see what's inside of me. Every nerve that hurts, you heal deep inside of me. Ooh, you don't have to speak. I feel emotional landscapes. They pass on me. I confuse. Solved, and you push me up to this state of
I'm just sitting at what's called Green Dragon Square, which is just behind the Leicester Marketplace. And there's a kind of dining area with a couple of people sitting here. You can bring your sandwiches or you can order food in. It's a bit windswept today. It feels as if people are safely either staying in the shops or the shopping centres, or they're kind of at home rather than venturing out into the town centre today. Not much we can do about the weather, but I suppose we could kind of provide alternatives and covered areas and kind of a bit more wet weather protection, but nice enough. Actually, one of the things I've always found is that once you're out and about on a typical British summer day that's kind of quite mixed and maybe not as continental as you'd like, actually it's usually quite pleasant and you can get out and about and do things. Whereas when it gets a bit too warm, so if it goes above 24, 25 degrees, I kind of start to find that frustrating, because you're having to find ways of cooling down and keeping chilled. Whereas we've now dipped down to about 18, 19 degrees, so you're kind of trying to keep yourself warm a bit. But these are the challenges of life. And not everybody's built for hot weather, and some people find this a little bit more to their tastes and their disposition. But it would be nice if there was some sunshine, and it's the kind of the layer upon layer upon layer of grey clouds. I've got my contact lenses in, and I struggle in kind of murky grey and light environments. So I have to have when I'm wearing my contact lenses at home, I have to have a lot of quite bright lights on. It's an age thing. So I just find that a bit frustrating. Whereas in the sunshine, when you're wearing a pair of sunglasses, and oh dear, I forgot to bring my sunglasses with me today. I don't think I'll be needing them. It's just a different way of managing how you get about. I suppose when you're younger, you kind of don't notice these things too much, but as you get a bit older, and nobody really warns you about this, it kind of comes on you one day that, one, your eyes don't work as well as they used to, but two, you kind of need to start putting those bright strip lights on when you're reading a book so that you can see clearly. But it comes to us all. So kind of thinking about this idea of climate change then is, we've really got, there was a report out last week from the International Panel on Climate Change, and there was some comment pieces written by Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor of the government, talking about what is required to cope and manage with climate change is a total systems change. And it's about changing the way that we live and how we go about organising society, really, and what we feel is going to mitigate and minimise some of the harm that we cause through pollution and through excessive expenditure of carbon and pouring exhausts into the atmosphere and excessively using energy and not conserving energy sufficiently and not managing and stewarding our resources, and the impact that this has on the biosphere, the world around us, the natural world around us, is significant. So we've seen this summer, we've seen wildfires, and we've seen heat blooms, and we've seen floods, and the interconnection of these things is climate change. We're seeing the effects of it. It's real, it's with us. It's not just an occasional heat wave that you get, which you would kind of expect. It's actually consistent, and it's a pattern, and it's embedded, and the question is, what do we do about it? Can we do something about it? And in what way is that change going to be brought about? So there's a whole load of kind of really interesting questions that we kind of need to start to be thinking about in terms of what and how we're going to address climate change issues. And it's hard to kind of just kind of ignore it. It will affect us all, whether it's our insurance premiums rise, our tax goes up, whether it's about the way that we kind of clean up after each other. I'm aware we've got choices to be made. So, for example, litter and graffiti and dilapidation in our town centres has to become very antisocial, because what are we going to spend our money on? The pandemic has proven that in order to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, we've had to spend a lot of money, which arguably we could have been spending on other things, and now we've had to spend it on protection, public health protection, and developing vaccines and closing businesses so that we could avoid the pandemic running out of control and killing lots of people. So that was a choice that we've been forced into. It wasn't a choice that we were ready for and that we'd prepared for and that we were capable of dealing with. What we did was we kind of panicked. And looking back, over the last 18 months, it was really kind of, first of all, we were kind of largely in denial. Oh, it's not going to affect us. And then second, it was like, oh my goodness, is this really happening? It's like the stages of grief, isn't it? You then deny it's happening, and then you start to make, you have to come to terms with it, and you have to kind of make adjustments to it. And there's only two questions, I think, which will define our politics, across the whole spectrum. They're not necessarily party political observations to make, but are we ready for the next crisis? Arguably not. And can we afford to pay for the next crisis? These are the discussions that we need to be having, and we need to think about how and in what way we prepare ourselves. So we've got choices to make. Should we be paying for failure, or should we be investing for future prosperity and security and future, kind of social engagement, social development? So there are many things in a place like Leicester, the Building Back Better agenda, the levelling up agenda, that really need to be addressed in terms of social infrastructure decay, and the way that over the last 10 years, through the austerity agenda and the decline in the faith of public services, and the increased focus on consumerism and investment in property and speculation and those kind of things, that the civic and social realm has really started to collapse, and we weren't best placed to handle the pandemic, and we won't be best placed to handle climate change and climate crisis. So we need to kind of be having these debates and discussions openly, and we need to be thinking about them in ways which are inclusive, where we take on board many points of view, and we really get out and start to ask the question, what does this achieve? What difference does this make? Who's responsible for this? And I think one of the observations I've kind of come to recently is that like this time last year, there were whole loads of discussions about Building Back Better, which lots of people were on Zoom calls and doing podcasts and engaging in conversations. We really got to do things differently, and I don't know whether it's me, but that seems to have dried up this year. And those people who were in those organisations that very quickly had to adapt last year and went online and moved all the services onto digital platforms and did teaching and delivery and service user contact through Zoom and things like that. It's kind of now become entrenched and embedded, and people have worked out that this is going to be their jobs and roles that are at risk if they give away a bit of power to actually necessitate a whole amount of change.
They're saying the Alp is so mild, I'm on the way down the side out.
بما أنكم كنتم أصدقاء جلسوا وحدثونني عليه أحب السفر جنوبا وشمالا من أجل سعادته وافقت حدثوني عنه لم يكتب لي أخيرا وجد الفرحة والحرية خبروني عنه كيف الآن حاله في البلد البعيد أو الآن سعيد سلسلتي من ذهب في الصور يبدو أنه تغير ويبدو لي حزينا متعبا حدثوني عنه هل لديه مشكل كيف هو بيته أينشد أغاني خبروني عنه أله أصدقاء تقولون في المساء يفقد الرجاء إن لم يكتب لي بما أصابه فهو يضيع حياته بعلمه أطلب منكم أن تكلموني أو محتاج لي يوما بقربه خبروني عنه لا أحب سواه قال لي اصبري وبعدها كان الصمت حدثوني عنه كيف حال حياتي في البلد البعيد أو الآن سعيد حدثوني عنه لا أحب سواه قال لي اصبري وبعدها كان الصمت حدثوني عنه كل شيء لا أحب سواه.
So this is part of an ongoing discussion that we need to have. It isn't just about my point of view. If you've got a comment or an observation to make, you can email me at rob@robwatsonmedia.net, or you can tweet or Instagram me at robwmedia. I'm interested in thinking about how we what solutions we put in place, what changes we need to make. But how does that include our media, and how does that include the experiences of, everyday people who listen to the radio? And when we're stood at the kitchen sink, or we're driving in a car, or we're working in a care home, or doing our job in a washing dishes in the kitchen. I'm thinking back to a lot of the jobs I did when I was younger. The radio, our media, is an important part of how we reshape and convince people and bring people along with us to make these changes, rather than just dropping in some 30-second spot adverts that get kind of played out a couple of times an hour, which are highly effective, but does it really bring about lasting change? And what's the basis of the change that we need to be thinking about? Keep using the phrase total systems change, and our media needs to be part of that. If we're going to address climate crisis, then we really do have to think about total systems change, and it's going to affect us in so many different ways and at so many different levels. And what we can't have is just a small number of people able to voice their concerns or able to give voice to their own perceived needs and priorities, but we need to be something which is open, shared, democratic, deliberative, all those kind of things that kind of share the risk and share the insight and look for ideas that are created across cultures and across boundaries and in different ways and across age groups. Lots to be discussed and talked about and thought about. Right, let's go and get some sounds. There's a guy moving a bin.
Pick your eye now, like that. Coming up, come on. Look good today. Pick your eye, coming up. Down the ball.
That is the sound of the roller disco behind me, and it kind of gives you an indication of how noisy things can be in British towns and cities. We seem to love to have music blaring away at volume. And one of the things I've done is watch these YouTube videos, these walking tours, and I kind of like kind of a bit of a francophile, I suppose. It's a very pleasant place. It's not without its problems, and it's certainly not a cheap country to visit or to live in. So that said, they seem to be able to sit and are able to enjoy themselves without loud music and loud sounds around them. British towns and cities seem to be dominated by traffic, noise. We don't build our environments for how they sound, and there is an important kind of connection with this, because if people can't hear themselves, then they have to raise their voices, and it gets a bit more boisterous, and kind of association with alcohol in those contexts means that it gets a bit more socially lively, let's call it that. And I think there's a kind of interconnection in people's minds that needs to be. What do we do to kind of help people get it, that responsible, sustainable change, to be positive stewards of our environment and the world that we live in, has to work on many levels. And one of the levels that it has to work on is an increased focus on civility, so that everybody feels included and can participate in the social world and the civic world. And that means holding back and not drowning out other people. Not everybody is able or is capable or wishes to push themselves forward, push past the noise, if you like. And we need to kind of moderate things down a bit. Yeah, there's a place for it. There's always a place for letting go, and festivals and holidays and things like that are good opportunities to do that. But kind of every time I go into a cafe or a bar, there's incessant music. You walk through a shopping centre, there's music, and nobody seems to be able to explain to me why it's a good idea. It just kind of seems that it's the done thing. So if that's the done thing, how many other antisocial, anti-ecological things are we doing? How many other things do we just take for granted that this is the part of the way that we live? When in actual fact what we kind of need to be thinking through is there are alternatives. There are things that we have impact. The number of people I've seen noticed, and once you start noticing this, you see it everywhere, who sit in their cars with their engines running, either checking a phone or some notes or something like that, but there's no apparent reason for the engine to be on. Not particularly hot, open a window, and yet people will sit in a parked up, and their engine can be running for 20 minutes, and that's like, it's got to become antisocial to do that. People have got to feel empowered to tell other people off, give them a stern look or a stern warning. We've done it with cigarettes. I grew up in the age when upstairs on the bus was smoking, and half the cinema seats were designated for a smoking area, and we've changed people's attitudes to that, like kind of seatbelts in cars. Well, we've kind of got to do the same with noise, and we've got to do the same with lots of these little things. The question is, what do we do? Do we do that by imposing rules and kind of carrying a big stick and fining people and having wardens policing everybody everywhere, or do we do it by encouraging people to develop a sense of rule taking for themselves, and a sense of inspire people to feel that they belong and that they are stewards for their environment and their communities, and that they want to see the best from them and not just gravitate towards their own impulses. So this whole systems change idea is going to be really profound on a number of levels, and it's going to be very challenging, and I wouldn't say that my point of view and my opinion is the right opinion. And what I'd actually really like to see is some wider expression of opinion, not just in terms of kind of these vacuous vox pops that we get on TV, where people are kind of asked on the spot what do they think about something, and they can only either give a very kind of simplistic answer, or they kind of it's polarising. But actually where people have an opportunity to sit down and have conversations and deliberate and listen to one another. So that we need to become a listening society which is respectful of each other's perspectives and views. But you can't get to that form of society without respecting and enshrining the individual and the individual's experience as valid and valuable. And so much of the administration and management of our public life is really just seeing people as part of a process and part of a system. You may as well be sausages in a factory, or you may as well be widgets coming off a production line, rather than being something which is a person who's got a life story to tell, which has got some kind of meaning to their lives, which has we each have a contribution to make. So there's a dimension to this which is, call it spiritual if you want, or call it humanistic, but which is about valuing people as individuals and not processing people as en masse, and not treating people as kind of like a herd mentality. We've heard that through the pandemic, that we wanted to achieve herd immunity. Well, that's probably why we've done so badly during the pandemic, because we're not a herd. We are a collection of individuals who, on one level, we may act in a very kind of collective way through what Carl Jung calls the collective consciousness or unconsciousness. Whereas on other ways that we act are very individualistic, and we've got to find a way to get and bring about meaningful change, rather than it just being something which is imposed on us, which is something that is given to us by an advertising agency who've got some very clever psychologists and marketeers working for them, but who live distant lives. The advertising and marketing promotion that is pumped out across our media is done on a national basis, and there are very few local stories that are told. There's very few opportunities for local people to have their point of view expressed and to put things in a way which makes sense to their local experience, good or bad. And within that, then, there's a kind of civic accountability as well to holding our decision makers and holding our elders in our communities to account for the way that they invest in education, the way that they invest in the built environment, the civic environment, the way that they promote certain forms of speculative development, and which local people don't get to make decisions and choices about. It's kind of overridden by bureaucrats in faraway, distant department in government, who won't have to live with the consequences of decisions that are made, because it's just thrown open to some kind of general marketplace, rather than it being about where you live, your sense of belonging, the place that you're part of. If we're going to redesign a sustainable future, we're going to do less travelling. And thankfully we've got these amazing technologies now of kind of teleconferencing, and we can talk internationally at very low cost relative to what it used to be like. But so how do we travel in the future? We have to travel responsibly and sustainably. That means that we won't be doing as much international jetting away as some of us have been doing in the past, and we'll have to use other alternative modes of transport that have less of a impact on the environment and on carbon emissions. So that might mean that we sit and watch more videos of places that we'd like to visit, rather than thinking that we have to rush around and be there at the time. So kind of a virtual presence in different places, and that can be empowering, and it can it can moderate some of the impact of travel. But then, what is there to stay for in a place where you are? So do you feel you belong? Yeah, it's one thing that John Yates talks about in his book Fractured. He says we need to invest in clubs and societies and opportunities for people to meet across social divides, we've become incredibly socially divided, and the idea is that you bring people together through knitting groups, through games clubs, through men in sheds, through walk and rambling groups, and that we need to flood society with a whole kind of renaissance of civic and public engagement through mutual support groups. We saw a bit of that through the lockdown, but we need to put a lot of resources into it, which would then enable people to set up and establish interest groups, whether it's book clubs, whether it's media clubs, camera clubs, whatever it is. It doesn't it's kind of mental health well-being clubs, fitness clubs, just lots of things where we can get together and start to do stuff as a community again, and that we don't feel as that we're always being pressured to follow the market and to kind of only ever kind of sign up for a special course or sign up for a special set of workout sessions, that kind of thing, but something which is freely available to us at all levels, which bring together young and old, which bring together people from across different income divides and classes and different cultures and faith communities and all the rest of it, so that we're actually we share a common bond because we've got something else to do other than shop. It's a good alternative to shopping and watching television, is that you go and meet up with friends and play a game of cards with them, or have a chat with them, and you foster those social bonds, that kind of cultural social capital that David Putnam talks about in his books, Bowling Alone, and the impact that isolation has on people is a major challenge. We're not going to be able to build back sustainably, and we're not going to be able to deal with the challenges of climate crisis if we don't also deal with the social crisis as well, and the meaning crisis that we find modern life to be harsh. You've been listening to Distraction Therapy with me, Rob Watson. Find out more at robwatsonmedia.net or follow me on Instagram and Twitter at RobWMedia.